Hello, I'm here to speak to you about the Distressed Colleague map that we have created to give you a guide on how to support a colleague in distress. You might first notice signs of distress, things like a change in behavior. Someone who's normally cheery and bright seems like they're nervous, agitated, or irritated. Virtually, this might look like someone who's normally has their camera on, turns it off, is on mute, and isn't engaging in conversation like they normally do. You might notice avoidance or withdraw, or even a deterioration in hygiene. Someone who's normally very put together shows signs that they're not taking care of themselves, and that's unusual for them. We want to ask ourselves, is this person at work? And by that, I mean, not just, is it during working hours, their typical working hours? So if it is during the hours, regardless of if you're with them or not, or if it's virtual or not, we want to follow these next steps. If it's during the work day, the expected work day, you want to ask yourself, are you worried about the person's safety? And do you see some warning signs? So there's a difference between experiencing distress and actually seeing those warning signs. Some additional warning signs you might notice are a change in behavior. They appear hopeless and helpless, meaning maybe they're making statements like, I can't do this anymore. I give up. I don't know what to do. I'm at the end of my rope. So some veiled threats. They might even make statements of, I just want to show this person who's boss. And so you may make some veiled threats about hurting someone else. And so if you notice some of these warning signs, we're going to go down the yes. Yes, I noticed those warning signs. Yes, they've made these statements. What do I do next? The next thing you're going to want to do is talk to them directly. You want to ask about your concerns. Let's use an example and say, Elisa or Lisa, I heard you say that you can't take it anymore. You're very upset. And I want to know, are you going to hurt yourself? Do you have a plan to hurt yourself? And a lot of folks think asking directly is a issue or is going to actually trigger someone to react on the behavior, but it's actually very important that we ask directly. Another important key to this is we don't want to defer that asking directly to someone else. So if you're the one that they're confiding in saying, I feel this way, then you want to be the one to ask directly. Calling your supervisor and asking them to reach out may not be effective because the person may become guarded. So, a big piece of this is empowering you as a colleague to feel comfortable to show that care to your colleague by asking them directly what their plan is and making sure that you can kind of get a little assessment about what kind of help might be most beneficial for them. And you can see now as we look down, there's different levels of help. There's red, urgent help, yellow, I'm not sure, and green, I think they're going to be okay. So let's connect them to some resources. If you're worried that the crisis is imminent and the person might harm themselves, you're going to want to go into the red. So you find that the person's unresponsive. They tell you that, yes, I just took medication, or yes, I just have a plan to hurt myself. I'm on the call right now and I plan to hurt myself. Anything like that. They're afraid, they're not sure what's going to happen. And sometimes it's really just a gut feeling. You just feel like they just don't sound well. They're not making any sense. I just saw them stumbling and they fell to the ground, things like that. We're going to want to call 911. Again, I think there's a misconception because we're at the workplace that maybe we should call HR first or call their supervisor. But if we are noticing these severe, imminent, in the moment danger, the best thing to do is just call 911 immediately. If you happen to be talking to that colleague in the moment, they're telling you on the phone, I just got bad news and I don't want to live anymore, or I'm just this upset and I'm making this plan. You want to try to stay on the line with that person if it's on the phone and try to engage another family member or someone to get help. You could even ask them, could I call for you while you're on the line, and could we both talk to 911 just to make sure that you're safe? I care about you and I want to make sure you're safe. So you want to do what you can to stay engaged with them and see if you can even be honest and open with them about the fact that you think that it's important that they get help. Sometimes we have it happen where you're getting a call from someone else. So it might be an employee saying, my coworker told me this, now I'm telling my supervisor. So it can kind of go lots of different directions. And so we want to tell the person who received the information, who knows about the issue, needs to call 911 themselves. And then the supervisor can also follow up by calling 911 as well. After 911 has been contacted, we want to follow up with our EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and Compass, and the number is listed there. And there's a couple different reasons. They might be able to offer support to you because it is a stressful situation to be involved, to know that a coworker is thinking about harming themselves or others, and you may want to talk it through with a licensed therapist. If you do call 911, just a note that someone from the Department of Public Safety will show up if it's on Allendale or GR campuses. What if it's unclear? So we want to talk about the yellow. The person makes statements that suggest, I don't know if I can keep going, but it's not necessarily I have a plan. Maybe you know that they just went through a divorce and their partner is giving them a really difficult time. And so they're just really upset and crying. Or maybe they just got news about the death of a loved one. Or maybe it's an overreaction, like, wow, I just told them that something small and they just started crying uncontrollably and it just didn't add up. So we always want to call 911 though if we feel like it's imminent and immediate crisis, because sometimes these yellows can change really quickly. Like they were fine and then they just ran off and I'm worried about where they went, or they made a veiled statement and then hung up on me. And then in those cases, we may want to just go ahead and call 911 and err on the side of safety. However, if you're really unsure, you could call Encompass and do a consultation. They have licensed therapists on standby. If you're talking to the person, you could ask, could we call Encompass together? It seems like you could really use some support. And there's licensed therapists available to you. Could we call them together, or could I get them on the line for you, and then I can walk out of the room so you can have some privacy? You could also refer them, say, hey, I think calling Encompass would be great. How about you give them a call and then call me afterwards and let me know how it went? So just important that if you feel like it's unclear, but you're still concerned, maybe ask them to check back in with you. Maybe do it with them. So we call that a warm handoff. We have a warm transfer, so they have the support that they need. And remembering that at any point, so you told them to call Encompass and you call them back later and they're not answering, you can't get a hold of them. Now you're starting to get worried. Then you can always go back into the red and call 911 based on the fact that your concerns are escalating. At the bottom, you'll see this black box, and this is some things just to take note of while you're in this red or the yellow. What is going on? Do you have any information about where they are? Are they at home right now? Are they in the office? Do you have their phone number? And if it's okay if you don't get all this information down, but just something to think about, because in the moment when you're in these situations, it's nice just to have a reminder of what kind of information you could try to just take note of when you're calling the police. And the last section is the green. So you notice some of the warning signs, and you can see here when we go back up to, are you worried about their safety? They definitely have some signs of distress, meaning I just noticed a change. They're acting a little different, but they haven't made any suicidal statements. They're not engaging in self-harm. It's just the distress, more on the distress side of things. So you would go down to the green and say, well, there's not an imminent risk. They're definitely not doing as well as they normally are, but it makes sense because they just went through a divorce or they just found out bad news about their loved one and they're upset. And that's actually a pretty justified response to some bad news. You're going to want to just try to show that support and care and offer them a listening ear, but you're also going to want to remind them of the services and supports they have available. You could remind them of Encompass, our EAP, and the My Life Expert program, which is a online portal where they can get resources and support. So it's very helpful when you make yourself aware of what Encompass can do, about what's available on the My Life Expert portal, so that you can do that warm handoff and maybe even help them call or help them set that up and do that warm transfer. So, and follow up with them and say, hey, did you get a chance to call Encompass? And once again, noting that if at any point you feel like it becomes more imminent, you can always go back into the red or the yellow. Thank you.